kind of going over the rough basics of how I made not how I made a telescope, but how I used a telescope to connect it directly to a DSLR, and used the telescope for a lens for prime focus. Someone commented, "You didn't give any building instructions for the telescope." And I didn't go into details about that. So I want to make a video going into detail, basic details, about how I constructed a telescope. So I found a telescope kit on the internet. And I don't have any financial connections to the company, but the name of the company is Surplus Shed. I bought three of these. I bought three of these kits. And inside the plastic bag that the kit came in held one of the telescope kits. And this is the telescope kit. This is the instruction sheet. There's 2 pages of instructions. One page is written, and the other page is a pictorial of the parts that are in here. The parts are the focuser. The focuser is a rack and pinion focuser, and by turning the little knob right here at the bottom, the focuser goes in and out. The eyepiece, one eyepiece is included in the kit. The focuser has a plug in one end of it so that you can put the plug in there when the eyepiece is not in the telescope and you want to store it for until you're ready to use it again. The storage for the eyepiece and the little plug for the end will keep creepy crawlers and spiders out of the tube assembly. Also included was the lens mount. The part that holds the glasses, the glass lenses, the glass parts that make up the lens. There, in this telescope, there's 2 pieces of glass that come in the lens. There's 2 pieces of glass that are assembled to make the lens. The lens parts are in this little envelope. Inside that envelope are 2 glass lenses, and they're wrapped in tissue paper. The instructions detail to you how to install these lenses, and for the moment I'm going to put the lenses in there while they're wrapped up in the tissue paper, just so that I can go quicker. When I installed this myself, naturally I took off the tissue paper, otherwise I would not be able to see through the lens. Also, the part that goes on top of this is just a little spacer. Also included is a cap for the objective lens holder, and that little cap goes on there. It just snaps on. It'll come off easily enough. Okay, the kit did not come with the tube that's used to put this together. And so what I had to do was go to the hardware store And I'm going to remove this lens for the moment, just to make it more convenient for me. Went to the hardware store, and so I was able to go through there and try to find a piece of pipe that one end of it would fit the objective lens holder, and this will not go either inside nor outside the lens holder. So, but it will, the focuser will go in here, but it's a little slack. It doesn't fit perfectly. There's a lot of slack in there. And it's cold today. So this end will be easy to make this focuser fit in here by wrapping masking tape or some sort of tape. I like masking tape because electrical tape or duct tape will eventually get sticky, and the sticky will migrate into places where you don't want it to migrate, and masking tape does not do that. So I've wrapped this part of the foker that inserts up into the tube with masking tape. Okay, my only problem that I really had left was here on this end to find something that would adapt this end to fit together. This is a coupling, it's a PVC pipe coupling. The objective lens mount will begin to slide into this PVC coupling, and this PVC coupling fairly easily slides in over on top of the pipe. So there's only two problems left to be solved. One is to get all this to fit right together, and the other is to come to find the focal distance, the focal length of the glass that fits in the eyepiece. Okay. Alright, because this objective lens holders does not slide all the way up into here, what I wanted to do was to make it so that this ring right here will fit up against this edge, this end right around here, end of this pipe coupling. So what I did was I marked inside there with a marker and found my starting place where I could begin to grind. What I did was I ground this down using a Dremel tool. And I know you've heard it before, the people that work with PVC, if you grind or sand on PVC pipe, always wear a particle mask, at the very least a particle mask, because PVC particles that would migrate into your lungs while you're doing the operation will never ever come out of your lungs, and it will decrease your quality of life beyond what you want to measure. Alright, this right here on the end of the pipe is this PVC pipe coupler. After all the grinding was done, I ground out the inside of this coupler with the Dremel tool while I was wearing my particle mask. And then by the time I was done grinding, what I did was I grind and fit and grind and fit. I grind and fit until such time as this objective lens would fit into the pipe coupler far enough that the little lip on the objective lens will go back to that end of the pipe coupler. And then I was satisfied that I had it ground out far enough. Alright, that's one step along the process. Another step is that when the lens is assembled, it's assembled with the thing set this way instead of this way. When it's installed, when the lenses are installed into it from this end up, and even when the little spacer is put in there, the little small black plastic spacer, when that's installed in there, still when this is turned up, even inside this pipe coupling, it's still not tight. So what I needed to do was cut another piece of pipe that will fit inside this to hold the glass to keep it from coming out. And so what I did was I found a piece of PVC pipe that would fit down in here and fit against the glass, against the lens parts, and it would not, just didn't fit right here. So naturally I used some freezer tape, masking tape, and I wound this on with masking tape to the point where it would fit down in there, and when the lens was turned this way, when I pushed this down far enough, I turned the thing this way, then the lens would not fall out. Okay, just for illustration, this is the one that I've already got put together. And once that's fit down in there, then the lens won't come out. It won't come out either way. Okay, that's almost every problem solved as far as making a telescope. The only problem left to be solved is to cut this piece of pipe that I got from the hardware store. The two things that were not included in the kit that I had to get at the hardware store was this piece of pipe and this coupler. And did I say two? The other piece, well, I already had some lots of different diameters of pipe, so I used one of those to make this lens holder to keep it from falling out the backside. Okay, the only other thing that's left to do is find the length to cut this pipe. And there's 2 or 3 ways to do that. Okay, I already stated there's 2 or 3 different ways to find the focal length of the telescope and to find the length to cut the pipe that goes in here. The way that I did it was I put the eyepiece in the focuser. I did that after I had this objective lens holder with the glass in it where that it would not flip and flop around and fall out. People who watch my channel regular for a long time know that when I show things, it's not unusual for me to say, let's pretend. And that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to pretend that this milk jug is my head. So call me a jughead if you want to, I don't care. And we're going to pretend that this little spot right here is my eye. And what we're going to pretend that I'm doing, what I'm going to do is hold this focuser with the eyepiece installed in it up to my eye, and I'm going to move this piece with the lens glass in it in and out, but I'm exaggerating the speed at which I do this because while I was trying to focus this, I had to move it just real slow until it came to focus. What's going to work is if the center axis of this is kind of sort of pretty much lined up with the center axis of the eyepiece. And then slowly but surely move the parts in and out until you find focus. Then once the focus is found, what I did was I moved it away from my eye to the point where I could estimate the distance between where the lens is and where this part meets the focuser, where the pipe meets the focuser. Now the instructions came with the suggestion or the instruction to cut this pipe 10 inches long. And I did that. I cut it 10 inches long. Well, it said 250 millimeters, but y'all know how to make the conversion. Multiply inches by 25.4 millimeters, and that will convert your inches to how many millimeters that you want to cut. So, I measured it 10 inches, and I installed the parts, and I know you can tell this is not the length, but let's pretend this is the length that works. But what happened when I cut it that length was it came to focus just barely. I had maybe 1/4 of an inch left to rack the focuser in towards between where the eyepiece was and the lens was on that end. And I knew I wanted to use different focal length eyepieces in the thing instead of the one that came with it. And so then I needed to shorten the length of the tube. And so what I did was I ended up cutting 2 inches off of the 10-inch tube, and that made that 8 inches instead of 10 inches, and that's what this is. And that works with the eyepieces that I bought. This eyepiece that came with the kit, it behaves like a Plössl, which it means it gives you more eye relief between your eye and where the eyepiece is right there. With some eyepieces, it's necessary to put your eye real close to the eyepiece. With a Plössl, it gives you a little bit more eye relief so that you can hold your eye farther back, and that's an advantage to people like me who wear glasses. And so that worked out real good, and that's how I made my telescope. Some months ago I made a video kind of going over the rough basics of how I made not how I made a telescope, but how I used a telescope to connect it directly to a DSLR, and used the telescope for a lens for prime focus. Someone commented, "You didn't give any building instructions for the telescope." And I didn't go into details about that. So I want to make a video going into detail, basic details, about how I constructed a telescope. So I found a telescope kit on the internet. and I don't have any financial connections to the company, but the name of the company is Surplus Shed. I bought 3 of these. I bought 3 of these kits. And inside the plastic bag that the kit came in held one of the telescope kits, and this is the telescope kit. This is the instruction sheet. There's 2 pages of instructions. One page is written and the other page is a pictorial